Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in a prior video we looked at this scope from the company Discoveryopt. This here in my hands, this is the HD Gen 2 5 to 30 times by 56 rifle scope. A beautiful scope, wonderfully crafted, just a gorgeous piece. And in all reality, this scope has more performance in it than any of the rifles I could put this on. But today I'm going to go through mounting this on one of my rifles. I'm choosing to use my Ruger PC carbine, which is a 9mm, which is quite strange for something like this, but I kind of need to get things started. I need to understand this optic. I need to start to play with getting it mounted, getting it zeroed in, and just learning some lessons, and for what I'm going to say, the easy and the cheap way. Because for me, shooting with the 9mm carbine, I understand that rifle, I know how it's going to shoot, and it's fairly affordable, all things considered, to shoot my 9mm carbine. So instead of blowing, $1.50, $2 a round, I'm only losing 40 cents per shot. So to learn with this, it's going to be fantastic. So today's video, a couple of things. First is, I am going to go through the full mounting of this. Now, unfortunately, due to YouTube and demonetization, I am going to swap the actual mounting and discussion for that portion over to my Patreon. So if you want to see all the details about me getting this mounted up, there will be sort of the B side of this, which lands on my Patreon. Then we're going to get into full field use. So hopefully I'm going to get this thing dialed in nice and tight, and then I'll bring it to the range. We're going to basically at that point get this thing to practical field use. So a whole bunch to do today. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoy this video. So with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now, before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Discoveryopt who did provide this for review. All right, and so now as we get into the Discoveryopt HD Gen 2 5 to 30 by 56. Again, we took a look at this in a prior video. This thing is a massive rifle scope, just really large. So it's going to look a little bit funny today. I understand that. I realize that, but it's all good because I'm here today to learn. Now, this optic does come with some nice, substantial scope rings. These here are just really large, beefy, well-made, just excellent in terms of the construction, the craftsmanship. And what I really like is they actually say right on here 20 inch-pounds, and then it does so at least give me an indication of how hard to go with the torque. Sometimes that's a question. Here 25 inch-pounds, so just labeling right away the torque that I'm going for, which is really nice. So as we get into this, I'm going to do a couple of things. Again, I'm going to have to switch over to my Patreon for this particular segment of the video because in reality, it does end up with some problems just in terms of visibility and monetization when you get into things that they consider to be altering and I would say modifying your firearms. And unfortunately, these days, they're flagging things like mounting optics. So this, again, will be mostly covered in terms of the mounting on my Patreon. Take a look in the description box below for the link. So now this is ready to go, fully torqued down, everything looking really, really good. And in terms of the evenness, it'll be a little difficult for you to see, but I really did try to keep the gap on the top and bottom of the rings even from the right-hand side ultimately to the left-hand side so that it's even pressure down and through. It's certainly not perfect, but you can see I did that the case on both the front and the rear rings just to really try to pay attention to it, keep it nice and even. And at this point, this should be properly mounted, properly torqued, and fairly squared and leveled up to the rifle. It's going to give me the best chance at getting this zeroed with my bore axis just right out of the gate. So that's the best setup I personally could do here, and I think it's going to go a long way in the end. So the next move for me at this point is I typically like to zero in the office or studio with the laser bore cartridge. So this goes right into the bore. We'll send it downrange. In this particular case, I only have like 35 feet. It's really about 30 feet. I could stretch to 35, but at 30 feet, at least I know that I'm starting to get things in alignment, and it kind of gives me a sense for where I'm going to start when I'm at the range. So at this point, I could do a couple of things with the Optic. I'm choosing to leave this at the 5 times power for here, because as soon as I start zooming in, and especially this close, it's going to get kind of wonky on me quick. But getting this cartridge into the bore, starting here, will also help me understand my cheek weld and my eye positioning and eye relief, which is another good thing, because at least with the particular Magpul stock that I'm using, I can make adjustments. So if I'm going to make adjustments, I might as well figure everything out in this controlled environment before I even go out to the field. But at this point, I have the laser pointed down, again, about 30 feet away. And I can tell already, based on my crosshair, that I am not in alignment. Now, it's dark down there, so I can see the laser. But the nice thing is, this has an illuminated reticle. So I can turn this on, and the reticle can go to red. So I have this all the way up to 6 right now. And it's real easy for me to see both that dot of the laser, but then also the bright red reticle. And my goal right now is to play with it and get those into alignment. And again, at 30 feet, but it gets me started, and I'm not way off target, which it would be at this point. Fairly simple to make my adjustments. So if my shot is too far to the left, then I want to move my shot to the right. And literally just dialing this in. Simple. Now I do have this parallax adjustment, because as I move my head, that is definitely floating around. So I'm going to make sure the parallax is as short as possible here. So that's helping a little bit. Right now, settling into my shooting position with the proper eye relief. That is about perfect in terms of the windage. Elevation, not bad. But at this point, it's pretty close to centered enough to at least land me on paper at further distances, and I'll refine everything from there. And so at this point, let's get out to the range. Not bad at all. Couple misses, but yeah, I'd say did a pretty nice job getting this dialed in. Not perfect, but I'm learning, and that was fun. And so now back from the range with the Discoveryopt HD Gen 2 5 to 30 by 56 millimeter, just absolutely beautiful first focal plane scope. This is gorgeous, just an awesome piece of gear, and completely outperforming the rifle that I have it put on. Now with that, everything went very well. At first I was a little bit lost on paper, just took me a couple of shots, figure out where I was, get it dialed in, and at that point, getting this dialed in the entire way out, absolutely no problem. It went about perfect. You can debate whether or not my shooting was adequate, but that is absolutely no bearing on the quality of this scope. This thing is just gorgeous. Now, a couple things that I do need to mention. The parallax was critical in my ability to get just that nice crisp sight picture, the ability to look through the scope, not only at the crosshairs on the inside of the scope, but beyond that to my target. That really, the parallax is what allows it to get perfectly crisp in both cases. It worked flawlessly. So from 50 yards all the way out to 100, and I didn't have the ability to go too much beyond that. No problem. Even closer distances in on 25, that was great. So all in all, this did work extremely well. Further in and tighter than 25, you're going to be kind of tight with something that has this type of magnification anyway. So the reality is, once you get to 25 or beyond, this was awesome. So that was perfect. One of the features that I did not use is the zero hold, keeping in mind the fact that as a reviewer, chances are very likely I'm going to be swapping this to other firearms. I'm going to be, at this point taking this off so that I can use my 1022 for other reviews. So if this was something where it was kind of one and done, and I got my hunting rifle set up and, wanted this thing to be dialed in and got it dialed into whatever, 100 yards, something like that, I might mess with the zero hold, but because it's not something that's really going to be practical for me, I didn't mess with it at all. So I can't really speak to that in too much detail. And another feature that I found I didn't really need, but I'm glad it's there, is the illuminated reticle. So you do have the crosshairs that can both be illuminated in red or in green. The day I was shooting, I didn't need it. I had plenty of contrast, the ability to see without turning it on. But the nice thing is you have a number of different brightness levels, so you can really bump it up if it's a super contrasty day, or you can dial it back if you just want a little bit of color. And in between each one, you actually have the ability to turn the light off. So the illuminated reticle, in between each one of the brightness settings, it's an off setting. So bright, off. Dim it down, off. Dim it lower, off. So it's funny how they do that, but it makes a lot of sense, because if you have a setting that you want, it's nice that you don't need to click this all the way past all of those settings. So again, every other setting on this is a brightness level and every other setting is off. And the only other thing that I'm going to mention is on my elevation and windage adjustment. Elevation, no problem. In fact, when you take a look at this, you'll notice that if you look at the dial, it's very clear that you're going to run this counterclockwise to bring your shot up. So that's not a problem. But when you look at the windage adjustment, it's not quite so clear. It does take a level of familiarity to get used to this, but as you take a look here, you can see these are marked 1L, 2L, 3L, and then it hits 5, and then all the R's. So at some point, if you have dialed this to a certain distance, well, the question is, should you be moving towards 4L or 4R or 5R, or how does that really work? It's just a little bit confusing. So after a while, I kind of got used to it, but it did take some practice, and at first I was just a little bit lost on paper. And again, that's probably more the fact that I am a novice versus the quality of the scope. I think if you probably got far enough along and leveraged other nice quality and high-powered scopes, they're probably marked the same way. I can't say that for sure. I don't have the experience, but that's my suspicion. So you just kind of got to get used to it, figure out what you're trying to do, and then just lock it into your mind. So for me, I want to say that counterclockwise was moving my shot to the right, but again, I can't really say for sure. That's just the way I feel. So yeah, I would say, I think I was going counterclockwise was bringing my shot to the right. Now, another critical part of the explanation for this Discoveryopt HD Gen 2, the fact that this is not calibrated in minutes of angle or MOA. Not the reticle, nor the turrets. This is in milrad or milradians or mils, depending on what you see, what you read, what you understand. Now, I'm going to caveat this part of this review and my statement by saying I am absolutely not an expert. In fact, I am barely educated enough to be dangerous. But what I can tell you is that means that if you are somebody who is used to minutes of angle and the appropriate math and calibration to keep you on target when you're making turret adjustments on your elevation and your windage, it will be different with mil or millirad. So you do need to definitely pay attention to that. So both your elevation and your windage turrets, and then of course inside the reticle. So this will be a little bit different for some people depending on what you're used to. And with that, on your elevation, you have a maximum and total elevation adjustment of 33 mrad. On the windage, you have a total of 17 mrad. And then ultimately a 0.1 mrad adjustment in between each click. So basically a tenth of a radian or a tenth of a mil, depending on what language you use and how you want to decipher it. So you're not going to be quite as granular from what I've come to understand as minute of angle, but at the same time, we are simply as human beings going to be limited to the capabilities of, first off, our skills, second off, the capabilities of our rifle, and third, the ballistics of our ammo before the granularity in the adjustment in elevation and windage would prevail. And so basically what I'm trying to say is the fact that there is slightly less granularity with mils versus MOA should essentially be negligible. It's really just an adjustment language to get used to. And the only real complaint that I have is that the box I wish was set up to accept me putting the scope away with the rings on it, because it would be awesome to just have this kind of set up here and be able to put this away. But unfortunately, the way the foam is constructed, and it's a very nice box, but there is literally no gap or ability for me to do that. So I'd have to kind of cut this box apart, and that's just the only downfall. A very simple thing and a minor critique, but it is reality. Things gets a little bit of familiarity, and the final point I'm going to make, and you saw me trying to mount this to my Ruger PC carbine right away, this thing's just honking. I mean, it is just a massive scope. So having that 56 millimeter on the objective lens, that's just gigantic. I mean, that's just a big piece of glass on the front, so you need to make sure that you have the appropriate distance off of your barrel. But other than that, this Discoveryopt HD Gen 2 5-30 by 56 millimeter front focal plane scope, beautiful. I'm a big fan. I love it. I think it performed extremely well. It's going to be a piece in my collection and my optics lineup for sure for a ways to come. This will make its way onto other rifles in the future. And so to the people at Discoveryopt, thank you so much for providing this for review. For the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor. Take a look at my Outer Limitless channel, which is more on my primary gear. On that channel, I cover everything from hiking, camping, and backpacking excursions, all the gear that goes with it. So from sleep systems, shelter systems, knives, axes, backpacks, flashlights, you name it. That's my Outer Limitless YouTube channel. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.